In Ogbunike, the elders taught every child the same warning before they could even walk properly. Never let your shadow touch the shrine stones after sunset. Ifeyinwa broke that law on a Friday night, and by Saturday morning, she was the only person in the village who cast no shadow at all. This is her story, and by the end of it, you will understand why some doors, once opened, close on their own. Ogbunike sat between two rivers and one forest that nobody farmed. The forest had a name, but the elders refused to say it out loud. They only called it the quiet place. In its center stood a shrine older than the village itself, a circle of black stones stacked by hands nobody remembered, guarded by a carved wooden figure whose face had worn smooth from centuries of rain. The rule was simple. Bring your offerings before noon. Leave before the sun touched the treetops. Never, under any circumstance, let your shadow fall across the stones once darkness came. The old women said a shadow left behind at night would not wait for its owner. It would simply walk into the shrine and never come back out, and neither would you, not really. Ifeyinwa had heard this story every year of her life. She had always believed it was the kind of tale mothers told to keep children out of dark forests. She was 23 now, restless and tired of being told what a woman could and could not do in Ogbunike. Her younger brother, Obiajulu, had fallen sick 3 weeks earlier. The village herbalist tried roots, chants, cold baths at dawn. Nothing worked. His fever climbed each night and broke each morning, only to return by evening worse than before. Their mother stopped eating, their father stopped speaking, and Ifeyinwa, watching her brother shrink into his own bones, remembered something her grandmother once whispered. Not the warning, but the secret hidden inside it. The shrine did not only take. On the right night, under the right moon, it also gave. But the price was always a shadow, and the shadow was always yours. She told no one. She waited until the house went silent, until her parents' breathing turned slow and even, and she walked out into a night with no moon at all. The forest did not sound like a forest that night. No crickets, no wind through the leaves, just her own footsteps, and somewhere behind her, a second set of footsteps that matched hers exactly, one beat behind. She told herself it was an echo. When she reached the clearing, the black stones seemed to drink in what little starlight existed. The wooden figure at the center faced away from her, the way it always had, until, for one impossible second, she was certain its head had turned. She knelt anyway. She placed her offering, a lock of Obiajulu's hair, tied with red thread, at the base of the statue, and she spoke the words her grandmother had taught her in a whispers meant only for the dead. Take what you must take, spare what I love. Behind her, the ground went cold in a way that had nothing to do with night air. She turned, and her shadow was gone. Not hidden, not faded, gone. As if speaking How had won. As if the moon and stars had simply forgotten she existed. She ran home without looking back, and by the time she reached her doorstep, her chest burned and her legs shook, but she was whole. By morning, Obiajulu's fever had broken for good. He sat up, ate his mother's soup, and laughed for the first time in 3 weeks. The founding celebrated. Nobody noticed at first that Ifeyinwa no longer tucks a shadow beneath the midday sun. It was the children who saw it first, the ones who play in dust and distrust things adults train themselves to ignore. One little girl pointed at Ifeyinwa standing in the market square and asked, "Why does she not have a shadow like your else?" The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Word reached the elders before sundown. The oldest woman in Ogbunike, a widow named Nne who had outlived 3 chiefs, came to Ifeyinwa's compound with a face carved from stone. "You went to the quiet place," she said. It was not a question. Ifeyinwa did not deny it. She explained the fever, the herbalist's failure, her brother wasting away in front of her. Nne listened without blinking, and when Ifeyinwa finished, the old woman only shook her head. Slow and heavy, like someone watching a fire spread that she had already given up trying to stop. "The shrine does not forgive a broken vow, child. It only delays the payment. Your shadow did not vanish. It stayed behind. And a shadow left at the shrine does not sit idle in the dark. It learns to walk." That night, Ifeyinwa barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt watched by something standing just behind her shoulder, close enough to touch, gone the instant she turned around. 3 nights later, the compound's night guard, an old farm hand named Okonkwo Agu, swore he saw a second Ifeyinwa crossing the yard at midnight, walking with no sound, moving toward the forest with a stiffness no living person's body could hold. He called her name. The figure did not turn. It simply kept walking, straight past the fence, straight into the tree line, and disappeared into the dark like smoke folding into itself. When he ran to check on the real Ifeyinwa, he found her sleeping soundly in her bed, completely unaware that some part of her had just left the compound without her. The visits grew closer together. A neighbor spotted the shadow Ifeyinwa standing motionless at the edge of the market at dusk, facing the wrong direction, facing nowhere at all. A child said he stood outside their window one night and simply watched, unmoving, until the rooster crowed. Nne returned with a solution, though she called it a mercy rather than a fix. Ifeyinwa would have to return to the shrine one final time, under a full moon, and offer something greater than hair and thread, something of herself, freely given to buy back what the stones had taken. Ifeyinwa chose her voice. The gift that had once sung her brother to sleep every night of his childhood, she surrendered to the wooden figure and its unblinking stare, whispering her thanks and her goodbye in the last words she would ever speak. Her shadow returned before dawn, stretching long and ordinary beneath her feet as she walked home. But Ifeyinwa never spoke again. Not one word, not for the rest of her life. She raised her healthy brother, aged into an elder herself, and became the woman village children were warned about. Not with anger, but with respect, the same way her own grandmother had once been spoken of in careful, lowered voices. She never needed to say why the shrine should be feared. Her silence said it for her, every single day for the rest of her life. And in Ogbunike, mothers still tell their children the same old warning, only now with one addition. Look at Ifeyinwa's face when you pass her in the market. That is what the quiet place leaves behind when it decides to let you go. Every sacred boundary exists for a reason, even the ones we don't fully understand. Ifeyinwa's love for her brother was never the problem. Her love was pure, and her fear for him was real. What cost her everything was the belief that a broken promise carries no weight as long as the outcome feels justified. Some doors ask for nothing in return until you've already walked through them. And by then, the price is no longer a choice, it's a debt. If you take one thing from Ifeyinwa's story, let it be this: honor the boundaries that came before you, even when breaking them seems like the only way to separate what you love. There is almost always another path. She simply wept out of time to find it. If this story kept you watching until the very last second, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, because a village like Ogbunike has more stories buried in its soil than one video can hold. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have gone into the quiet place to save someone you love, knowing what it might cost you? I read every single one.